Good morning, students, faculty, and parents. As Dr. Hall just said, my name is Oliver, and I'm going to talk to you about courage found in the book Unbroken. Before I start, I'm going to tell you where I learned and decided on my topic. I go to church almost every Sunday, and on one particular Sunday, my pastor invited a special speaker. He spoke to us about the life of Louis Zamperini. There were 3 points that stuck to me the most about this book. First, no matter what you face, keep on fighting. Second, life is full of second chances. And third, never give up on people you love. Louis was born January 26, 1917, in New York City. Louis's parents immigrated from Italy and moved to New York. After he was born, his family moved to Torrance, California. They barely spoke any English. This made Louis a target for bullies. He was bullied every day, and this got him into drinking and smoking at a very young age. Louis went on to barely pass grade school and barely make it to high school. Then he got involved in the school track team. He practiced every day and every night. After his freshman year, he finished 5th in the All-City C Division. As time passed, he became a star. He trained all summer, and he was unbeatable. He started breaking his brother's records, and until in 1934, he set his own record. He clocked a 4-minute, 21-second mile. This was set throughout all the schools in the United States. After this, he decided to try for the Olympic track team. He ran the 5,000-meter dash. He tied with another runner, earning them both a spot on the Olympic team. He would go to the Olympics, not winning any medals, but finishing with a great final lap. After his Olympic career, he went to college, graduated, and enlisted in the Air Force. To make a long story short, on a rescue mission, his plane crashes. He and 2 men are stuck on a life raft for 47 days. Then he's captured by the Japanese and becomes a POW, or prisoner of war. He uses his instincts to survive and make it towards the end of the war. This brings me to my first point. No matter what you face, keep on fighting. For example, Louis faces many challenges, like when his plane crashes. He has to survive on a raft, and he does. Another instance is when he's captured. He's beaten and tortured, but no matter what, he keeps fighting and he survives till the end of the war. Now I'm going to tell you a story. As some of you know, I had a dog named Henry. Henry was my best friend. He was also the perfect example of a fighter. Henry had many instances where we thought he was going to die. For example, his stomach turned, and this is a life-threatening instance for a dog. But not only did he survive, but the doctor said he didn't even need any medications during the recovery process. Another instance is one night we let him out, and when he came back in, he had puncture holes in the side of his stomach. He had been attacked by a buck that night, and the buck had stabbed him with its antlers. We had to take him to the doctor, and he had to get stitches on his side. He also got the stitches removed from the previous surgery, but he never gave up. He pushed through. In fact, the doctor said he wouldn't make it through the surgeries, but he lived for another 1.5 years. He died at the age of 14, which is amazing, because bulldogs normally only live from the ages of 8 to 10. Henry is the perfect example of someone who keeps fighting no matter what. My next point is life taught me is never give up on others. The best example for this is Louis' brother, Pete. Pete was a great athlete, and everybody loved him. He saw the situation his brother was in, the drinking and the smoking, and he never gave up on him. He was the one who persuaded him to join the track team. He wanted something better for his brother, so he practiced, trained, and raced with Louis every day. This was the best thing that ever happened to Louis. Louis held the high school record of 4 minutes and 22 seconds. This record would last 19 years. He would go on to qualify for the 1936 Olympics in Berlin at the age of 19. Even though he got 8th place, he had a great final lap that clocked at 58 seconds. This was enough to catch the attention of Adolf Hitler, who was at the Olympics. After the Olympics, he enrolled as a student in the University of Southern California. In 1938, he set a national record with a mile of 4 minutes and 8 seconds, even though he had severe cuts on his shins from competitors attempting to spike him during the end of the race. This record would hold for 15 years, also earning him the nickname the Torrance Tornado. Louis was thankful that Pete never gave up on him, the same way I'm grateful that Henry never gave up on me. No matter what, he greeted me every day with a happy and loving attitude, and no matter what happened that day, good or bad, he didn't care. He loved me no matter what. My last lesson is life is full of second chances. In one point of the book, Louis' plane crashes, and he and 2 friends were stuck on the raft for 47 days. After 2 weeks or so, the raft is caught in a severe storm, and it seems the men are going to capsize and drown. But no. Louis asked God to help them and keep them alive. He made a promise to dedicate his life to the gospel if he kept them alive, and sure enough, they survived. However, this was not the only second chance he would get. Louis will survive the terrible conditions of the concentration camps after he's captured and will return home a war hero. But his biggest battle is still ahead. After World War II, Louis returned to California and married Cynthia Applewhite. It seemed that his life was going to be great, but that quickly changed. Louis suffered severe PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. This condition happens to soldiers after they return from the war. They might re-experience things they saw or heard during the war. Louis was haunted by his captors and the conditions of the camp. He had nightmares almost every night. He also started drinking and smoking again to get his mind off the war and of his nightmares. Then Louis's wife, Cynthia, heard of a man named Billy Graham. Billy Graham was a little-known preacher, and he traveled around preaching in cities. The Zamparinis heard about him, and Cynthia decided it was best if they go, but Louis refused. Cynthia decided to go anyway, and after the meeting, she dedicated herself to the gospel. She finally convinced Louis to go, and at the meeting that night, Billy was talking about sin. But to Louis, he felt that he was talking about his particular sin, and he stormed out and refused to ever go again. Now I will show you an interview with Franklin Graham, Billy's son.
Evangelistic Association, the Reverend Franklin Graham. Nice to see you, Reverend.
Thank you.
All right, so why was Louis Zamparini, what was his relationship with your father?
Well, first of all, he was a war hero, and the whole country knew him. Even Torrance Airport in California had already named their airport after him in honor of him, thinking he was dead because he was so well known as an Olympian, and then his heroism in the Second World War. So my father was just a young preacher. Now, no one knew who he was, but he was holding a meeting in 1949. He was asked by a group of Christian businessmen and some pastors to come and hold an evangelistic service in Washington and Hill, downtown Los Angeles. They put up a big tent. And Louis Zamparini's life was falling apart. He was an alcoholic. His marriage was failing. His wife had already filed divorce papers. She was leaving him. But she went to hear my father, this young evangelist that no one heard of. And she gave her heart to Jesus Christ, and her life was changed. She came back and told her husband, Louis, I'm not going to divorce you. I gave my life to Jesus Christ, and I'm not going to divorce you. And he was thrilled. He was excited about that. And she asked him to come here. I said, I don't want to hear some evangelist. But finally, she kept pressuring him, and he came. And the first night that he heard my father, he got up and he stormed out. He didn't want some preacher telling him he was a sinner. He knew he was a sinner, but he didn't want someone else telling him he was a sinner. So he ran out and said he'd never come back. But a couple of nights later, his wife Cynthia convinced him to hear Billy Graham again. And as my father, at the end of his message, Louis Zamparini got up to leave like he did the night before. And when he got to the aisle, he remembered that promise that he had made to God when he was floating for 47 days in the Pacific, being shot at by Japanese airplanes, surrounded by sharks. And he told God, if you get me out of here, I'll serve you with my life. And that night, Louis Zamparini went forward. And Greta, his life was instantly changed.
As you saw in the video, Louis was moved by what Billy had to say. His words reminded him of the promise he had made to God when he was stuck on the raft. That night, he had gotten a second chance. He finally had peace with himself for the first time in forever. The nightmares began to go away, and he also stopped drinking and smoking. He dedicated his whole life to the gospel. He was a changed man. The same way as how I go to church every Sunday, listening to my preacher, this gives me courage to stay true to my faith. Louis died July 2nd, 2014, at the age of 97. If any of you are struggling with courage, keep these principles in mind. No matter what, keep fighting. Never give up on people you love, and life will always give you a second chance. Now I will leave you with a quote from the famous Napoleon Bonaparte. Courage isn't having the strength to go on, it's going on when you don't have the strength. Thank you and have a great day.